Welcome back to On the Rise, as the CSA, Jesse Marsch, and Kevin Blue have identified and recruited one of the top Canadian dual national targets we have gotten into Canada in a long time, as Jesse Marsch has landed the Canadian Croatian dual national target in Niko Sigur. That is right, it is done, as Niko Sigur has filed his one-time switch, and Croatia have announced it that he will be filing his one-time switch to leave the Croatian Football Federation and represent the Canadian Soccer Association. And that just feels extremely good to see and extremely amazing to say, because Niko Sigur will be representing the Canadian men's national team, and that is a huge recruit and a big get for Jesse Marsch, the CSA, Kevin Blue, and also Mauro Biello and everyone behind the scenes, because this recruit is top from the CSA, because Niko Sigur was a player that we have had so much rumor, so much speculation, and whether it was around him representing Canada, whether it was around Canada never being able to get Niko Sigur again from Croatia after he was also on their standby list for the Euros. So that just shows you how good this player is. And the fact that Jesse Marsch has been able to convince Niko Sigur to come represent the Canadian men's national team is such a huge get and such a big player for Jesse Marsch to land very early on to his tenure. And this is a manager who had some doubts around some fans and some supporters as he walked into this job, but already landing his second dual national recruit. That is right, it's not his first, as you guys might forget someone else he has landed after all the hype and excitement around Niko Sigur. He also landed the likes of Tani Oluwasi from Minnesota United, the Nigerian-Canadian dual national. And yes, you can bring up the fact that Tani Oluwasi was always probably going to join Canada, but there was always going to be doubt. So this is his second dual national recruit for Jesse Marsch, for Kevin Blue, and it is a huge one to land Niko Sigur. It is a big statement piece, and we can talk about international football doesn't have transfers, but if you guys don't feel like this feels like a transfer, I gotta ask you guys why, because this recruitment is such a huge get, and it really does feel like a transfer at the international level, because getting Niko Sigur is not just important for Jesse Marsch, for the CSA, but this is huge in terms of supporters. It's an uplifting feeling, especially going ahead of two massive friendlies against the USMNT and the Mexico national team in this next friendly window. But ultimately, getting Niko Sigur is important on so many different levels, and I'm going to break it down, guys, and we're going to also look into the report and the announcement, because Niko Sigur shared his thoughts on Croatian Football Federation on Twitter around filing his one-time switch to represent Canada, as it is a huge day for Canadian soccer to land the likes of Niko Sigur. Before we jump into it even more, guys, make sure to drop down below, hit that sub button, drop a like, and let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below on landing Niko Sigur and how important this is to you guys as well. Really appreciate the support, guys, as we are going to jump straight into it. Canada and Jesse Marsch has, of course, landed the Croatian-Canadian Niko Sigur, who was born and raised in Burnaby, BC, as he is still only 20 years old. He's represented the Croatian U21s on multiple occasions, but also was on the standby list for the Croatian national team heading into the Euros. So like I said, that just shows you his pure talent, his ability, and how highly Niko Sigur is rated outside of Canada in Croatia. It's not just a hype thing by Canadians to land a dual national. It is a dual national that is a big loss for the Croatian national team and the Croatian Football Federation, as Niko Sigur has been a very exciting talent ever since he was 19. As just a year ago for Hajduk Split, he played 32 starts, playing 34 matches, having 2,700 minutes as a 19-year-old in a very good Croatian First Division for Hajduk Split. And that just shows you his talent. But also, one of the key factors, one of the big things that I think is massively important around this recruit, among many, is the fact that he is in such a versatile, such a pivotal role, and where he can play on the pitch. Niko Sigur is a very versatile footballer who can play it right back, who has done that with Hajduk Split for some time, but also is a defensive midfielder. And if you're a Canadian football supporter and you don't hear a defensive midfielder and a dual national recruit and your eyes don't light up, you don't get excited, I don't know what you're listening to. Because that is one of the most important and one of the most pivotal positions for the Canadian men's national team. But also, central defensive midfielder is one of the most pivotal positions on a football pitch. Playing at the 6 is one of the most important positions for any footballing side. And yes, you might not agree to some sense, but it definitely is. Just look at sides around world football. Teams are built around the 6. It is a huge cog in the unit of any footballing side. Just look at Manchester City, for in fact. When they have Rodri, they are by far the best team in the world. When they don't have Rodri, they can fall off. When they have Arsenal, Declan Rice. There's so many different examples worldwide of a central defensive midfielder being the key piece to any club football side, and especially at the national team level. And right now, Canada's been in that kind of bubble of we have a great midfield too, and a great pivot of Ismail Kone and Stefan Stakio playing for great clubs in FC Porto and the likes of Marseille now, and two midfielders who we know have that level and are playing at a great level. And now you bring in Niko Sigur, who can slot in, whether it's beside Stakio, whether it's beside Kone, whether it's sitting on his own as a 6. We know we now have that 6 that we can build this midfield around. And there's no building it around now. You now have 3 midfielders who you're like, okay, Jesse Marsch can line up in that 3 in the back, play 3 midfielders, plays 2 outside wide wing backs or midfielders as well, and or play 4-3-3 of some sorts. And Jesse Marsch's team is now falling into a perfect side because Niko Sigur fills in that 6 role that Canadians have been looking for and saying, who's going to be that third midfielder role? Because for some time we've been saying, okay, it's Samuel Piette, who is our really only out-and-out 6. So the fact that we're getting a midfielder who is about 10 years younger than Samuel Piette, it just is absolutely beautiful. Nothing against Samuel Piette, but he's always been our only 6, especially ever since Atiba left. And now you got 3 midfielders who you can trust, who you think you can know will run a game, who can control the game, and can move the ball, who can command a midfield, who can play with the ball, and who can also press. And this is a very exciting sight to see. But also now, you now think about Mathieu Chouanier, who's going to Grasshoppers, who's moving to Europe. It just gives you another midfield option. You don't have to look at Mathieu Chouanier to rush that progression to maybe be a 6, because now we have 2 6s in Stefan Stakio and Niko Sigur, and that they don't have to be on the pitch at one time. They can be, or you can take one off the field. You can put Mathieu Chouanier in. There's now so many more options for Jesse Marsch with the recruitment of Niko Sigur because of the position he plays, which is such a huge factor into landing Niko Sigur, and that's why some of the hype is there. That's why I think Niko Sigur is the most important dual national recruit we've had in a long time. Because you can look at Niko Sigur and see him as a 6, and you can say, well, Daniel Jebuson's still out there. Well, Daniel Jebuson isn't at a huge position of need. Yes, you can say we still have some striker depth we could add on to. You could always add on to depth, but Niko Sigur's at a huge position of need. And I'm going to talk about in another video where I break down how he could fit into this squad and where he might play and where he could start. But another huge factor that I really want to key in and hound in on is the fact that Canada got a huge talent and a big target from one of Europe's elite, one of world football's powerhouses. And it's a huge statement to go get a dual national, to go get a target of yours from a different nation to show that you're better than them, you got a better project, that they want to play for you. But not just that you're getting them from Croatia. This is a side that's made Euro semifinals and finals, who's made the World Cup final, and who has some top players and who has had a rich footballing history in Croatia. And the fact that you're going to Canada from Croatia, some would be saying, why? Why are you making that move? Well, first team football, you're starting for many reasons, you're playing for the country you're born and raised in, but it's such a huge get from Canada to get a talent from Croatia to represent us. Because already, once he announced that switch, you had Hajduk Split fans out there, you had Croatian supporters saying, this is a horrible move, we're losing a key talent, and everything like that. They're upset that they're losing a key talent in Niko Sigur, who they think should be in their starting team, in their starting squad for their national team, not just the U21s. These are supporters for Croatia who think he should be representing them at the top level. And Niko Sigur, like I said early on, guys, put out a statement on Croatian Football Federation on X where he went to say this, quote, "It was an honor to represent Croatia, which is a football powerhouse, superpower, and which is my family's homeland, but with a passage of time, I felt that I wanted to represent the country where I grew up and started my football career, Canada. I appreciate the open communication and understanding of the decision by Croatia, and I thank the coaches, teammates in the national team for the pleasant time I spent as a young Croatian national team player, and I will always be a big fan of Croatia." And the fact that he goes out and points where I grew up and where I started my football career to represent the country. And that is just unbelievable to hear. This is a fact that we don't have to think of or second guess. Does he want to represent us? Did he make the right choice? Is he overthinking that he made the right choice? Is he double thinking anything? And the fact that we know Niko Sigur has made his mind up, he isn't going with his family's homeland, he isn't going with what his parents might want him to do. This is his decision to represent Canada. And this is overall an unbelievable thing for Jesse Marsch. The fact that he knows Niko Sigur will have his heart set on the Canadian national team, he won't be having second thoughts in the back of his mind. It's a huge win to not be second guessing himself constantly. But this is a player who never should have fell through the cracks in Canada as well. That's another way we can look at it from another perspective. But the fact that Niko Sigur is coming to Canada, he's left the likes of Croatia, there's so many positives there. And the fact that we've got such a talented player from Croatia to represent Canada, to play the six, who can play right back, who's going to be starting for us. Not in September, but it has been announced he will be available for October as he's getting over a minor injury. There is so much brilliant news around this, guys, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comments about Niko Sigur filing a switch to represent the Canadian men's national team. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Make sure you hit that sub button, drop a like, and guys, we're going to have more videos around Niko Sigur switching to the Canadian men's national team by taking an in-depth look at how he might fit into the squad, where his role might be, and just a more in-depth look at his position in this squad. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.